There's something missing in the conversation when we talk about AI.
AI is going to be so ingrained in our society in 20, 30 years that no one's going to give a shit about anything else unless it's human interaction.
Enter Tony Berardo. He's a friend of mine who owns a content marketing agency. And the other day we ended up in this really weird conversation.
Unless there's soul, we cannot be replaced. But also, what is the thing that's getting stripped from us every single day? Soul.
Do you think the following is too far off?
I think the answer is just, I want to see if you're going to cut that part out. I help people and brands generate high quality content, whether that's UGC, which is user generated content, or just in general vertical or social media content that you would post on TikTok or Instagram Reels, as well as podcasting. So I help people start, manage, and upload their first episode of their podcast and then carry on to continue posting podcast episodes. So we literally do everything from just coming up with the idea, branding. If you have like a small idea of like, oh, I want to create content on this, we help you kind of conceptualize that and put that into words and then put it on paper, and then paper becomes content.
And for those who may be new to this world, user-generated content, what's that?
Yeah, so it's changed over the years, but now it's kind of like kind of honed in on an authentic testimonial from a person, a real life human, not like, and I say that because we're always used to like seeing products from like influencers. And I think that was the waves ever since social media started, a couple decades ago, where we saw like Kim Kardashian and, these big influencers and celebrities kind of promote products. And then I think it started off genuine, where it's like, maybe Kim Kardashian does like this makeup, but then she launches her own makeup or Skims or whatever the hell she's up to now. And then eventually it becomes like, okay, she has whatever 100 million followers on Instagram. Companies will pay millions of dollars for them to have a product in the background of her show. That's not authentic. She's not using that, right? She's too good to use that product, whatever XYZ product is. So social media eventually, I think, switched to people aren't really resonating with that anymore. And you're seeing product sales drop, especially when the pandemic hit. So then how can we generate authentic sales? How can we get it out there? Well, eventually it started off as people just doing testimonial videos on TikTok, right, in 2020, because everyone's scrolling on their phone. And, companies, I was a part of these companies that would send products to people, and we never called it user-generated content. When I was at Monster Energy, we used to just ship them what we would call influencer boxes. You've probably seen these before.
Why didn't y'all ship me anything?
Well, dude, if I knew you 5 years ago, I would, of course.
I didn't have a following back then.
I don't think any of us did. So we would create these really cool, sexy, fun boxes, and we would just ship them for free. We wouldn't pay them. And then naturally, just people, when they get free shit, what do?
Totally share it.
Yeah, you open up your stories and you're like, oh, thanks, Monster Energy. Thanks, Athletic Greens, whatever the product is. And then eventually now companies are starting to see, wait a minute, this is organic. Like people are clicking our links, this uptick in sales, because people are just posting something on their stories. So let's constantly send product. And then eventually now these quote unquote influencers or creators would see this and start to leverage this. And they'd be like, hey, I don't want free product anymore. I want you to pay me, and I want free product. And this is what I'll post. I'll post on TikTok. I'll post on Instagram, whatever. And then now 5 years later, I think it's evolved to this entire business where if you type in user-generated content, a lot of marketing budgets from companies are literally investing millions of dollars a year on this. And
so how would you differentiate that between, I just had Justin Moore on who talked about his book, Sponsor Magnet. And he was talking about, just kind of like the micro influencer and just really niche communities and how they could get brand deals. What's the difference between that and what you're talking about?
I think it's parallel. I think it's around the same ballpark as that. Because that's kind of what it is. It's micro influencers. Sometimes when you see this user generated content, it's from people with 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 followers. They don't have a big impact because it really doesn't matter in that world. Typically, most brands, when they want user generated content, these creators are just they're authentic. They're down to earth. They resonate with a certain audience, and typically they'll create that content and send it to the brand, and the brand will actually post it on their platform.
Mhm.
So again, unlike, we'll use Kardashian as an example because she's well known, but unlike her, companies will pay her to post on her social media because there's millions of people.
Right.
Well, that really doesn't matter in the UGC space, because in the UGC space, the brand is taking the content that the creator made and posting it on their brand platforms.
Got it.
So the followers of the creator doesn't really matter. And why is this beneficial? Well, I think it's beneficial for twofold. Number one, for the consumer, because again, we go back to, it's not a high-end influencer celebrity, because we don't want that. Like you and me as consumers, that doesn't appeal to us. It's like when celebrities try to talk politics. It's like, shut up.
Unless it's Hugh Jackman, he can do whatever the hell he wants to do.
That is true. He could take my wife. Yeah.
Just
Hugh
saying.
Jackman is he's a different world. But yeah, most of the time we're not really influenced by that. So I think from a consumer standpoint, it's exciting and it's cool to see that. And I don't think this is going to last forever, but I think that's the trend now, and you have to hop on it if you're a brand. And then, going back to kind of the brand side, it's good from like a financial standpoint, because now you're not paying Kim Kardashian millions of dollars. Now you're paying an influencer $500, $1,000, $1,500 per video. That's it.
Yeah.
But that's gonna turn more leads and get more clicks than a Kardashian will. So it's exciting.
It could, but I guess where my mind goes is how many folks actually understand structure and storytelling and make good content. Like posting hey, thanks, Lewis Howes, for sending me this book. Because like he was smart. He did the same thing. He just sent everybody who came to the Summit of Greatness, he sent them a free advancce copy of his book. And what did we all do? We all did exactly what you said. But me, like, taking a little selfie with the book. Thanks, Lewis. I mean, like, how does that convert actually to sales? I mean, is there an investment in, in helping these creators learn storytelling? Or y'all did this at Monster, it sounded like. Like, how did y'all gauge what was successful or not?
It's a good question. Yeah, I mean, how it is different, because I haven't been with them for 5 years, but I know back then this wasn't really like a thing that was on people's minds. We really did it because marketing 101. Like I have a marketing background for over a decade, and marketing 101, have a message, get it out to as many people as possible, whatever that means. So now it's changed to, now there's digital marketing, and there's more advertising. Now there's branding. Now there's like these different, tiers that kind of live under the marketing umbrella. And I think an important thing to answer your question is, it's all about creating community and brand and growing that brand through community. And I think that's kind of how those intersect, because when you get that free book, it doesn't really matter if you post about it. The question is, when someone asks you at a coffee shop, what book you reading?
Got it. Yeah.
It's that, you don't have to post about it. It's daily lives. It's a residual income in my eyes, because you're going to read that book maybe in 6 months, maybe 3 months. You're going to take it everywhere. You're going to talk about it. And now with these phones, these freaking microcomputers in our pocket, if someone's like, yo, that's a dope book, Heather, where'd you get it? Boom, Amazon, it's here in 2 days now.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to post about it. It's just all about getting out awareness for your brand. And I think that's the power of, giving out quote unquote free shit. Because really, if you think about it, if you know anything about anybody out there that's marketing a business or doing AdSense or Google Ads, or you're boosting an Instagram post, that could cost you $1,000 a week.
Correct.
Giving Heather and a couple creators a free book, that cost me what, $5? Right? Whatever the cost of the book is. So if that generates 1 sales in 12 months, the ROI on that is a game changer, right? It's twofold, right? Because if you're just getting 1 sale from Heather posting about it, that's perfect, because it only cost me $5. So I think it's just a matter of, like, you have to figure out that micro investment, and it's the long-term play, not so much what we're kind of used to as like creators and brands, which is like, okay, if I spend $5,000 on Google Ads, it's going to generate, $10,000 in 6 months, and then it's going to grow over the course of time. It's like, all that's nothing, because that's just a very short-term way of thinking. It's all about building a community, creating brand awareness for the long term. And I think it's also just about building relationships. Like, if you're a smart brand, that's how you're going to do it. Is you're going to give out stuff for free. You're going to go on podcasts for free. You're going to talk about your products. That's just kind of how you got to build a community. Unfortunately, it's not the sexy way to do it, right? Because it's such a long-term play.
Right.
But I think overall it's the smartest play.
Yeah. But you couple that too with nobody gives a shit about products. You know what I mean? So
right.
it's like back to the storytelling piece. It's like, how do you give a ton away, but still not make your product the hero and figure out how to create like a bigger narrative around it? And I'm always looking for examples of people who've done that. I know Smash. I don't know if you, what was it? Smash. It was a non-alcoholic company that, did you see them? She was smashing the cans and she went viral.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, I totally forgot the name of the company. That's going to kill me.
It's called Smash. They rebranded Smash. It was called Mixology. It was called Mixology at first.
Okay.
And then they were rebranding it. But they never made the product like the center of the thing. It was her. And so that's what I find so interesting about this whole conversation is just, and while we were going to connect today is figuring out how to humanize our brands, because people are going to be looking more and more towards human connection as AI advances. And I think you had a really interesting take on that when we talked the other day about, everybody's rushing to optimize and scale and put bots in everything, which we're not against. We're business owners, obviously. And also, there's something really interesting there that we could take advantage of if we can hone in on it, which is the human element in the human narrative. And I'll let you go off on that.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a great point. And I think it's all happening so fast for brands and for people. And it's a little bit overwhelming. And sometimes what history has shown us, like I'll just use TikTok as an example because it's the most recent. 5 years ago, everyone's doing dances on TikTok with 0 followers and they're making fun of things. And we're all stuck at home because of the pandemic. We start to see how people, there's 1,000 examples of people within 2 years becoming millionaires from dancing off TikTok. So then now for whatever reason, in 2022, 2023, now we're programmed as consumers, as people, as brands, we're programmed now, you have to hop on the bandwagon. You got to do it. So if something hits, if it's trending, just like Gary Vee says, right? Oh, this is trending now. You got to fucking do it. Like we're so infatuated with like becoming first and making the most money the quickest. And, when we hear AI kicking ass and taking names and making you money, you want to do it. And you want to hop on it. You want to learn everything about it. But then we forget sometimes, okay, so 10, 20 years from now, if AI is going to be everywhere, that's going to be just like Vine. That's going to be like Snapchat. No one's going to give a shit about it. It's going to be AI because it's going to be everywhere, right? It's going to be so readily available. There's nothing chef's kiss about it. There's nothing special about it because it's going to be the normal. So what's going to be the premium, we got to get on this quick? It's going to be the human element, I think, in 20 years. I think AI is going to be so ingrained in our society in 20, 30 years that no one's going to give a shit about anything else unless it's human interaction. Meaning, like AI is going to run everything, right? We're going to put on our Meta Ray-Ban glasses. You're going to live in an AR world. You're going to be talking to your friends with your AI glasses. Like everything's... So now there's going to be like subscriptions where you can pay $10 a month and you get to have a live podcast with Heather Parody. Because you never see Heather Parody. It's like, it's premium. She's a human. Let's interact with her.
That's
Finally,
a crazy thought.
I'm telling you, it's going to be
Where did
weird.
you come up with this? I've had a million AI conversations with a ton of people and no one has ever thrown that thought to me. And I'm curious where you came up with that.
It's not a good answer, I don't think. It's just...
ChatGPT told you to do it.
I just asked ChatGPT and it told me to tell you this. I've been so like you infatuated with AI, and just the other day, I really had a realization when I looked at all my subscriptions, and a lot of it was AI based. Like Opus Clips, ChatGPT, doing it all myself. And I had one of the clients reach out to me, and they go, "Hey, I had a buddy of mine that I'm paying him to do podcast coaching for me because I used to do that was a bulk of my business. Now it's kind of like a small percentage." And they go, "Hey, I had a guy, he's doing podcast. Can you take a look at some of these clips? Because I don't know, like compared to what you used to do for us, can you just take a look?" So I look and I watched 5 seconds and I was like, "That's Opus Clips."
Yep.
Like he charged you probably, I don't know, $50 an hour, whatever.
Yep.
And he went to Opus Clips. He did one click, and he had 10 videos made for him.
Yep.
And it sucks. And every one of them, all 10 sucked. And I go, how much did you pay? They told me the rate. And I go, if I charged you $10 more, would it be worth it? If it was like how I used to do it for you? And they go, yeah. I go, okay. That's all I needed to know. And I didn't take their business. I just told them, this is what you should do. And I kind of gave them a direction. But that's when it really hit me hard. When a lot of my clients and a lot of businesses that I've worked with in the past, it's so plain to see that they're using AI for ads, for just everyday use, for LinkedIn text-based posts. And I would reach out to them, and I'm just super genuinely curious because, like you do all your editing too, which is unbelievable, which is why it's so good. And you look at that versus like a lot of other creators, you could tell it's AI, and there's nothing wrong with that because you're working smarter, not harder, and now you can reallocate time to spend with family or maybe do other business ventures. Nothing wrong with that. But I think in terms of the quality, depending on what your audience wants, I don't know if that's the best route to go. And I think maybe in 5 years, AI might be different. Maybe it's going to be unrecognizable, which is probably very probable. But again, I think there's always going to be a human element where, I don't know, can AI paint the Mona Lisa one day? Maybe, but not right now, And I think we would pay heavily for Mona Lisa versus an AI version of Mona Lisa. So we just have to kind of think of that where the human element is always going to be there. And when it's not there, well, then we got like a James Cameron Terminator thing on our hands, right? Because if the human element ever goes away, I think that's when we're in trouble. So I think eventually it is going to be the premium. And that's why you always have to have that skill kind of in your back pocket and keep up with it. I posted something the other day that a few people came at me for, but I thought it was fascinating, where I always say AI is not the enemy here. You're not going to lose your job to AI. You're going to lose your job to a person using AI.
Right.
And that's the thing. It's always going to be the person behind AI.
Right.
Always.
I'm going to get a little woo weird on you, but this is where my mind goes in this conversation is I think I know AI will eventually get structure and hooks and formatting and will be way better at taking this 1 hour transcript and understanding context and being able to select based off of current algorithms and what will go viral and select way better clips than what it's doing right now. I know that because there's a formula there, right? What I think is interesting is the basis, the inception of ideas and conviction is such a human experience that can't be fabricated, but it can be felt even in post. Meaning, if you write a poem that is essentially the same thing as what AI wrote, and you read both of them to your wife, one of them will make her probably tear up and the other one will fall flat. Now, word structure, all that may be exactly the same, but there is an energetic and spiritual component that there's conviction there and it can be felt. And I know that's weird and woo, but that's where I get excited because I'm like, unless there's soul, we cannot be replaced. And I think people are going to be hungry for soul, but also, what is the thing that's getting stripped from us every single day? Soul, conviction, passion, heart, belief, hope, love. And we're becoming number and number and number as I sit here and drink my energy drink, which is completely contradicting what I'm saying, because even like from the foods we eat and everything that's around us, it's like we're just stripping all of this down. There's my rant on that. But I get excited when you talk about this, because for me, it's not like AI is going to replace us. It's going to demand us to become more human.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. So beautifully said too. And I think that's another reason why I started my own company. I don't know if you remember, but a few years ago when I got let go from Monster for something that was out of my control, unfortunately. And then eventually
Yes, you can say it.
They pretty much, it was because I had my own podcast is what it was. And unless I was talking about Monster Energy, Yeah, they don't, you got to be 100% committed or not at all. It's fascinating. And I said, fuck you. But then I got another job and it was way better, more money, more fascinating, great company, but unfortunately they don't know how to manage money. So they went bankrupt within 2 years. So they laid off everybody. So that sucked. And then that same week I had a tumor in my lung and I ended up having to get a third of my lung removed. And then the day I got discharged from the hospital, which was a long journey, my father-in-law passed away. So it was like this within a year, my entire life and my wife just went into shambles.
Mm.
And during this whole process, we're doing IVF and IUI to try to get pregnant, and that wasn't working at all. Thank goodness, obviously now everything's fine. And now we have a beautiful girl that after a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of shitty things my wife had to go through with IVF, boom, she's here and it's all worth it. But I think during that time when I decided to open up my own company and I looked at everything, I look at things so differently now. Like these conversations I love having with you because it is human. We are losing the soul. And I realize that more and more when I committed so much time, energy, and love into friends at my job. And a lot of people could probably relate to this. When you leave that job, like I don't talk to anybody anymore. These are I was, best man at their wedding. Like I spent weekends with their kids. Like all these people that I thought I was going to, they were going to be in my deathbed. They don't even talk to me anymore because I'm not working for the same fucking organization they're working for. And it just goes to show you how brainwashed we are as humans and how manipulated we can be. To think that you're important at a job is laughable. You are not, because when push comes to shove and that company is in the red, my dude, you will be gone and they will not care about your healthcare, your parents, your mother, your father, your kids. They don't give a shit about you. And that's what happened with some of the companies that I worked with. And it just made me think I'd rather bet on myself, even though it's riskier, have my own company. But more importantly, I think I just valued things differently now. Like we talked about subscriptions and all that. Like when we talked the other day, you're like, you add it all up and you're like, holy shit, how much money am I saving? Like it's so funny because you can make less money, right? But if you really look at your life and this brainwashing that has happened to you over the decades,
Preach.
the Netflix, the Disney, all that stuff, just take some of that stuff away. You'll have a few $100s extra a month and you don't have to work the job that you hate. Yep. Or better yet, hold on, don't have childcare. Don't take kid childcare. Just be a stay-at-home mom. Guess what? It costs $35,000, $40,000 a year to have childcare.
Yep.
That's how much you're making at your job. So why don't you just stop doing the job? Oh no, Tony, I have to do the job because of healthcare. Hold on, wait a minute. Eat better. You don't have to have as much healthcare. Quit drinking every day. Don't put poison in your body. There's so many things that we can do to alleviate the stresses that we think we have. And there was a great podcast, and I fucking forget. I'm so pissed that I don't remember. Because as we're talking about it, it spices me up a little bit because he said something fantastic. It might have been on Diary of a CEO, the Asian fellow with the glasses.
Oh, the speaker, communicator.
Yes.
Yeah.
I forget his name. Unbelievable though. But he said something that was absolutely incredible. He goes, just take a look at your life and everything that you think is stressing you out, write it on paper. And then when you get sick, see if everything on that paper matters.
Right.
Because when you're sick, the only thing that matters is you want to feel better.
Yeah.
Like you just want to get better. And that really made me think, man, where it's interesting how we put all these things on pedestals, the nice car, the nice house, the subscription. I want to relax and watch Netflix with my wife, like all that. We're spending so much money to get to this happy place. But none of that matters when you're sick. None of that matters when you think you have a couple weeks to live, And I was when I got that news of my tumor. I mean, I looked at my wife, and I thought that was it. When I had a tumor in my lung, like how do you recover from that? Like a tumor in your lung? What?
Yeah.
I just thank goodness it was benign. It wasn't cancerous. But for that, couple of weeks that we were waiting on the biopsy, it was, I thought that was it. I didn't care about, the money that I make or the job that I didn't care about any of that. And I think that's what we're talking about, the human element, where like you said, the soul, like everything that we are doing on a day is just stripping that feeling of, gratefulness that we're here. And, we're just getting clouded every day by it. And I think AI is just another step to that. And, it's nothing we could do about it. I think it's great because it's going to help out a lot of people. But do not get it twisted where that is not going to take over everything. this whole AI thing of like, no, it's not going to be that. The quantum computers I'm a little bit terrified about, but
Maybe that.
yeah, forget AI, dude. That quantum computing is more terrifying to me, but it's also exciting because I think it's going to help us, cure a lot of illnesses, and it's going to run so many different numbers to tell us, hey, this is how you don't get tumors in your lungs, right? So these are all things I think that quantum computing is going to help with, but we can't forget that the human element is going to be the most important thing for this species to survive. It's going to be the most important for sure.
Here's what I've been wrestling with, and I'm interested in your take with it, is as conscious content creators, which makes me sound like a hippie, but essentially all I mean by that is understanding and appreciating the human element and wanting to amplify that in our content so we can connect with more people and make a bigger difference in this world. So we're prioritizing our humanity. That's a pretty thought. But then when we think about growth, and you and I both, our income is based off of us building our brands, and it's a big deal. So the way that everything is set up, and I can only see it escalating from here, is through search and relevance. And the hierarchy of what is shown to people is based off of specificity and value. And so here's where my mind goes with that. Like, you and I were talking the other day about how we've seen trends, even with Diary of a CEO, where they're leaving longer spaces in their conversations, or you did a survey, people not editing out and, keeping content a little bit more organic and raw and imperfect. And that's interesting from a connection standpoint. But when we think about from a searchability standpoint and adding more value, that's where I struggle, because I've hosted, I could throw up all over the floor how much content I've put out and how many shows I've done and how many episodes, and volume has not been the answer for me. I've only seen things work when I've gone very narrow and specific and upped my intention with everything. Like, I used to not talk to people before the show. I would just be like, let's just shoot the shit, and it didn't work for me. But also there's a human element in that is really important to preserve. So if you think about balancing humanity, this is a deep ass conversation. I love it. If you balance humanity and then also to be conscientious of building brand and the way that the system is set up for search and relevance, how do you wrestle with that?
It's a great question. Yeah, I wrestled with that too for a while, as we discussed the other day. And I think the answer is just I want to see if you're going to cut that part out.
I literally had that thought. I was like, there's a space.
Cut it out. No, I think the answer is stick-ativity. And that's a word I think I might have made up a while ago. But sustainability, consistency, whatever you want to call it. But I like stick-ativity just because I used that when I was at an old job a couple decades ago. And that's like, what can you do forever? Right? Like, I'm married to a wife that I believe I'm gonna be with her forever because I can stand her for
That's
50
good.
years.
That's
right.
Yeah.
And I think when we look at content, or when we look at a business, or to your point, putting out content, you, Heather, just from as long as I've known you, you're not good at the quick hit stuff. You go deep because that's who you are. That's ingrained in you. And what you were trying to do earlier, correct me if I'm wrong, is you were trying to tailor your content to an audience that you think wanted that quick hit shit.
Definitely.
Here's the fun part about this. It doesn't matter what they want, because they might be with you today. They might not be with you tomorrow. The question is, will your content change based off their response? Like, if someone says a comment, says, Heather, that's a stupid piece of content, why would you do that? Are you going to stop making that piece of content?
They do every day.
Of course they do. So ipso facto, if they say it's a good piece of content, are you going to keep doing it? Doesn't matter. Yeah. Right? But but whether they like it or not, the point is you're going to do what you're going to do, because whether you think it's good or bad, it doesn't matter. You're going to put it out there, because that's your process, your creative process. When someone paints a beautiful piece of artwork, they don't say, I wonder if someone's going to buy this. They just made it. If someone buys it, great. If not, it stays in their storage closet. Like, it is a great artist creates art for you, for the artist. That's why you're creating. And I think it's so funny that now people, especially on YouTube and like Instagram, you're starting to see a lot of these creators kind of go back to the, like you said, the not cutting out the the deep conversations, the long form. They're not using the quick Alex Hormozy emojis in their fonts. It's all relaxed, long form, good conversations, quality, not quantity, right?
Yeah.
But 4 years ago, we were told the opposite. But there's a lot of other creators that for 10 years, they've only been putting out quality content, not the quick hit shit. A great example is Peter McKinnon. If you know Peter McKinnon, if you guys follow creative, like, he has not changed.
Yeah.
He doesn't put out quick hit TikTok videos, all that shit. It's just 1 or 2 videos a week. They're high quality, they're pristine, they're engaging, great storyteller, does a lot of stuff. He's probably turned on a lot of brands, but it's always been high quality content for a decade. And that's why he's so successful. He might not be as successful as Mr. Beast, because what does Mr. Beast do? He puts out fucking 5 pieces of content a day. He's got a team of people. It's quick hits, it's engagement, it's hooks. Now, he's successful. He's the most successful YouTuber on the planet. Will he be in 10 years? I don't know. What if AI changes things up to where maybe now creators kind of shift a little bit, and maybe they look at Mr. Beast stuff and they're like, AI did that. I don't want that anymore. I want a deep conversation from Heather. It's always going to go back to that human element, I think. There might be little trends and little hits that we saw the last couple of years, but think about it. That was only 4 years. 4 years, that little time between the pandemic when we're all sitting at home and we need a quick hit of dopamine and we want to watch that cool video for 5 seconds. We have that short attention span. But now we're at the point where, like, we're sick of it, right? So it only lasted a couple of years. And I think the more of us get out of that, it's kind of like tainting the market, in my opinion, the creative market, because you're literally making people have short attention spans by doing that, you know? And I'm guilty of it too, right? We all are when we scroll on TikTok. Sometimes my wife will send me stuff. I don't know if your husband does, but she'll send me, and like, I'll watch it for a couple seconds, and then I'll swipe. She's like, "Why didn't you laugh?" And I go, "What do you mean?" She's like, "You didn't watch the whole thing?" I was like, "No." It's like, "Well, the funny part was a minute in." And I go, "A minute? You want me to watch that for a minute?" And then I catch myself. I'm like, "Whoa, I am massively addicted to these devices." And that's a problem. That's a problem creatively. It's a problem for consumers. It's a problem if you're a brand. These hooks, you know, like we were just talking about this, where the big hooks of 5 top reasons why you should stop doing this as a creator.
Right.
That was a trend. No one wants to see that anymore.
No one gives a right.
But that was for 3 years. That was like all we were seeing. So I think, again, going back to the thing that the X factor is always going to go back to is the real human element. The the ands. I think if we all stick to that, there's going to be a little bit of people and a few of your audience that might be like, I want the quick hit shit, man. But in 5 years, they're going to want the human stuff. In 10 years, it's the human stuff. It's all going to come back to that, I think. So the soul is what I think makes a great creator, to your point.
I'm curious your thoughts on this. You said earlier, sustainability, I forgot, stickedness.
Stickativity. I don't know. Maybe someone's going to fact check me on that. I don't know if that's a word or not.
That's a book. What came up for me when you said that is we don't know what that is for us because we're not with ourselves long enough to really know what we would do if no one was looking. And we've been programmed to have all eyeballs on us. So it's almost unimaginable. Like, I can think about it, but also too, I don't live in that reality. I've had Facebook since I was 20, you know, so I've been creating, I think you said that. I heard it in another conversation I was listening to. You know, we've been creating most of our adult lives. And so the idea of what is it that I really want to create and what is it I really want to say, I get that and I have good guesses, but I don't live in a world where that would actually be a reality.
Right.
And so the practice of getting still and quiet and really asking yourself some of these hard questions, it seems so counterintuitive in our fast-paced world, but it's almost like the world's demanding it of us at this point, because I don't know about you, I've wrestled a lot with what is it that I am really trying to say, and what is it that I could talk about forever. And it's such a weird thing to say at 38, you know? I mean, I have a really good idea, but I can also, I think I have enough self-awareness to know that that's a tainted answer, even the one that I give.
For sure. Yeah, man, dude, we relate. I relate with that big time. Because we're very similar, I think, in the aspects of like the type of content and kind of like our goal and our direction of things. And it's unfortunate because I still struggle with this. Even before this conversation, I usually like to go on Notion and I kind of plan out my week every single Monday, whether it's like batch recording or, you know, what I'm going to be creating. And sometimes I'll scroll for a little bit and find inspiration from creators and copy and paste that link and then put it on my Notion and use that for later. And I've struggled for years about what I want to talk about. For the longest time, it was podcast coaching, and that's all my channel was going to be. And then it was like, people really resonated with the podcast. I'm like, well, I want to talk about my podcast too, but you know, like, how do I do that, but also like do the parent thing? Because I really enjoy like making fun and, you know, giving little tips and hacks about being a dad. So it's like, how do I be professional, but also I want like fun, trending content with my daughter. And I think, again, the answer is, what am I not going to get sick of? And again, to your point, you want to be relevant and you want to make money and you want to create a brand. I just think I just don't give a shit. I don't care if I'm successful, because what is successful?
You were let be honest with me.
Yeah.
Look me in the eyeballs.
Yes.
You don't care if you're successful.
I don't.
How do you let go of that?
You know, again, it's just, I think it's just what happened to me. I used to care so much. I just don't care anymore.
With the tumor and the losing the job and then the father-in-law, like just all that compacted in that short period of time changed your perspective.
Yeah. I believe so strongly in what I'm doing and how much fun I'm having with everything. And I've realized that I don't need to make six figures. You know, like, look at, even though we do, like, we're doing fine. By the way, don't be worried out there, everybody. But like, we're successful, we're fine. I just don't, when we say success, I think we're tainted as creators, where it's like, we want to be like Joe Rogan. You know, how do we get a studio like Dak Shepard? How do we get a co-host? And how do we, like, of course I want those things. That's a different thing, right? Do I care is what we're talking about. Like, of course I want those things, but I don't care if I ever get them. I just know that if I stay on this path and I focus day by day about what I'm doing, and I believe in the content, and I don't listen to the noise, and I don't change up my content based off of what's trending, and, you know, you got to use these fonts because this is what's resonating with Gen Z. Like, who gives a shit about that? Like, that, if I just keep doing what I'm doing, success will happen. Or it won't. Either way, I'm going to enjoy the journey. And I think that's the indifference that you have to be a creator nowadays, because the competition is more than you could possibly fathom. Every day there's thousands of people that think they're going to be the next creator and next podcaster. But the most successful podcasters don't quit.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with look, feel, success, story. Just don't quit. You know, Joe Rogan didn't make it until he was in year 10 of being a podcaster. Now he's the most influential media in the world.
Media.
A fucking podcaster. Media, not media. People go to this clown for his news. And I love Rogan. He's amazing. He's one of my idols. But he just kept doing what he was going to do. So you don't have to like him, but that's the story of success. Is he didn't stray away from not talking about UFC. He talks about fighting. He talks about working out, testosterone, hunting, you know, all the things that makes Joe Rogan Joe Rogan. Hate him or love him, the reason he's so successful is because he has been him since day one, all the way up until today. He hasn't changed. And I think if you ask him if he thinks he's successful, he would probably say, I don't know, probably. He doesn't even think about those numbers, because he's just what? He's been doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
he just keeps doing it. And I think that level of indifference hopefully leads to my success. You know, but if it doesn't, I think I'm going to be happy along the way, because again, when we leave this planet, what are you leaving with?
Yeah.
You know, it's like we have this thing of success of like what we want to be. And I think that's what I was kind of driven by before, where it was like I always wanted to open up this podcast studio and I wanted to like create this thing where creators can come and hang out and network and we could do podcasts together. And that is my goal.
Mm-hmm.
But is that going to be success for me? I don't know, because maybe it's more stressful. You know, maybe it's going to be like a really dope spot and a dream of mine, which I want to do. But maybe when I get there, maybe I spend less time with my daughter unintentionally.
Yeah.
And then 5 years down the road, I'm like, shit, should I have done this? Because then is that success? So now I'm making all this money, but then I don't hang out with my daughter as much. I don't know. Right. So you have to think about this stuff as you're like planning things out, what you think success is, because what we think success is really what other people are doing.
Yeah.
We're always following other people, what we think is successful. And ironically, you ask all these successful people, and what do they always say? They're like, man, when I was your age, I wish I didn't care about money as much. And you're like, wait, what?
Because it's all, at the end of the day, this wild ass illusion that we're living in. Like, if you even think about, I know like health and, is really important to you. But you think about just connection to earth versus our connection to the digital space. And there is a distinct line in those two worlds, and we're different humans in each world. And you think about going, now we're just hold on with me for a year. I'm going to get a little weird again. But you think about going from you go from your earth experience. Here I am with my daughter in the backyard, sitting in the grass with the sun on my face, eating popsicles. And it's just very like, you feel the texture, you can feel everything. And it's a very present experience. And then you look at your phone and then you're transported into a completely different world, which is a distinct different reality. And so there's these hierarchies and systems and entirely, complete success, not successful, yada, 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 all these paradigms. And we think that these are blended realities when really they're so distinct. And I feel like what we've been talking about this whole time is just like that intentional go back into the real reality. Just like you were saying, we have more power than we think. We're probably more successful than we think. We may be happier than we think, than we realize we are, if we can get back to that centered space. And I can feel myself, the shift going online and the shift getting off of it. And I love the digital space. I'll be in it forever, but it's also wild. Wild how difficult it is for me to draw that line, even though in my mind I understand it's there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the problem, and also a great thing about you, is you're driven and you want that success, and you're going to get it for sure because of, the skills that you have and the personality and all that jazz. No doubt. And I just think it is hard because without our devices, you're right. I think we all would think that we're successful. Like if we have time, if I may share a proverb with you, do you mind?
Yeah.
So very fascinating story of this American that finds a village of a man that spends his entire day fishing, hanging out with family, telling stories around the campfire, just having a good time. So this American's like, this sounds awesome. Let me go check out this village. He goes to see this village. He sits down with this fisherman and he's like, hey man, can you show me the ropes for the day? Fisherman's like, yeah, let's go. Boom, sunrise, they hop on the boat, they catch more fish than this American's has ever seen in his life. And like, we're talking high quality fish. Takes all the fish, brings it back to the village, cooks it in front of the fire with all his friends and family. Everyone's crowding around. They're making fish, they're having bread, fruits, like all this, just a smorgasbord of food. Is a big party, right? They're telling stories, they're having a great time. American looks at the fisherman and goes, this is amazing. And the fisherman's like, I know, this is my life. I do it every day. And he's like, you know what you should do? All these other fishermen here, you should take these guys and we should like open up a place where we can.
It's so me.
Where we can just fish all day. And then we'll go to other villages and we'll just sell that fish and make a profit. And he goes, well, why would we do that? He goes, because then you would have multiple fishermen working for you. You don't have to fish anymore. And then the guy goes, okay, so then what do I do next? And he goes, well, then you do that for 20, 30 years, then you could retire. And the fisherman looks at the American and goes, why would I do that? And the American goes, because you'll have all this money that you could do whatever you want. And the fisherman goes, you know what I would do if I retire? And he goes, what? I go, I would wake up in the morning. I would fish. I would go back to my village. I would cook. I would tell stories with my friends and family around the campfire. That's what I would do if I retire. And again, American perception versus everywhere else. It's a fascinating, especially if you go if you go to Italy or if you go to these other places, they have a totally different perception of what we do. Like, we always look at things and we're like, how can we make it better? When we're always chasing this made up construct of what we think success is and wealth is. And if you talk to a lot of people in other countries, they're very happy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's right or wrong. I just think that the chase, is never going to be worth what you think it is. I think if you talk to a lot of successful people, they'll probably tell you the opposite, which is you're going to spend all your life chasing something that doesn't even exist. And then once you get to that point, you're always going to want more and more and more. And then through those years, you're going to tarnish a lot of relationships. You're going to waste a lot of time. And time is really the only thing that we have, if you think about it. It's the only real thing that exists. Everything else, even the dollar bill, even like days of the week, we made up. It's all fake.
Even Bitcoin.
Wait, hold on. We made that up? Should I pull out money? Is that not real? We made it all up, man. And it's like when you start kind of switching your mindset, and it's so hard to do that, right? I'm so hypocritical on myself sometimes because I do have a nice microphone and I have a nice studio and like all these things. But again, this is if you want to take care of your body, you're going to eat good food, right?
Right.
Well, creating and podcasting is something I love, whether I get paid for it or not. That's just what I love. So that's why I invest into that. But I think where you got to be careful is when you start investing money and time into things that you're doing because you think it's going to make you successful.
Preach.
Right. That's the kicker. Spend thousands of dollars a month. That's okay if you love doing it and if you have the money. But don't do something because you think it's going to be the future or you're going to be successful. Because I think time and time again we're always like shocked about what makes us successful. Like again, you look at these TikTok creators that have made millionaires overnight over a couple of years. Like a lot of those people, probably all of them, were getting made fun of, I'm sure, when they were making videos. And now here they are making millions of dollars on TikTok. And it's like when you can kind of separate yourself from what people think versus like what you like to do.
Yeah.
I think that's success.
That's it.
Yeah.
Where can people find you online? What would you like to direct folks to?
Good question. So you can find me everywhere at the Berardo, and my podcast is Humanity and Hashtags. So if you dig deep conversations, I talk a lot about health, wellness, social media, and kind of the creator economy, how that all intertwines. And then I am launching a new apparel brand because I'm a dad. So it's called Human Dad, where the tagline is "Mistakes will happen." Because as a dad, we kind of have to embrace the chaos and that we're not as good as being parents as maybe we think. So the apparel kind of speaks a little bit to that. And it's fun. So this is kind of what I do with the podcast and creating. And I'm always very fortunate to talk to you, Heather. So thank you for having me on. And
won't be the last time. Last question. What is something in your life that you do not have the answer to that you are deeply questioning? It could be something related to what we talked about. It could be something shallow and weird. It could be anything, but what's been on your mind lately that you don't know?
This is true, but it just doesn't sound like I'm trying to spin it like, how can I make this creative? But it's not. What happens after this?
Oh, damn.
Yeah. That's been on my mind ever since
like
that.
Heaven, hell, afterlife.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, especially because I'm atheist, so that's a fascinating
Oh my
thing to think
God,
about.
we have to talk about that at one point. I would love to talk to you about that because I am, oh God.
Yeah.
Jesus, we could talk about that for an hour.
Yes, I'm down with that for sure.
I had no idea you were atheist.
Yeah. More agnostic, but definitely I lean that way. Even after this whole incident, I lean that way more than anything now. A lot of people when they have like a thing like I had, they're like, oh, I turn to God. I'm like, no.
God,
No,
oh man, I can't wait to debate with you. We got to have like a head to head on that one. Go ahead, keep going. I'm sorry.
let's do it.
I got excited.
But I think that's the exciting thing about it is it's because I've always been kind of more objective and try to be middle, forward thinking, where I'm not like so all in with something. So I think when all that stuff happened to me, I continue to like just find myself like thinking, why? Like this doesn't make sense to me. Like, why is this? And then sure, I could turn to, a higher power, but it just made me think about like, if there is a higher power, it's probably more probable that maybe he made us, but then he's just like saying, good luck, bro. Like he's just watching now. Because again, like a great example, I don't want to take too much time, but if he, so I put all this work into my podcast, let's say, right?
Yeah.
I put all of it in. Why? So I can manage it for 50 years? No, I do it because eventually I want to be quote unquote successful. Well, if I'm God, I'm not going to make all these people and manage them constantly. That seems like so much work. Like if I'm God, I would just want to like make them and be like, all right, I did so good. Here you go. Have fun. And that's how I kind of envision if there is a God, like that's how he's doing it. And I think that's more beautiful than the latter, which is what we all think, right? Because I think it's more beautiful that he's saying, you got this. I'm going to trust you to figure it out. And that's what kind of motivated me to get through everything. Like I didn't take painkillers, not because, I didn't want to like disappoint God or disappoint a higher power or anything. I didn't take painkillers because I know the downfalls of taking painkillers. Like I wasn't influenced by the devil or vice versa. You get what I'm saying? Like not to get too deep on that, but I think that's more beautiful is like we can look deep into ourselves and realize that we can make the right decision or the wrong decision. And we do have that free will. And that made me kind of get a little bit more spiritual than religious is probably the best way to put it. And that's why I don't think I'm more in the middle with everything with that, because I think there is something. I just don't know what it is. And I think it's more spiritual than religious. I think people over the years have ruined the religious aspect of it. And I probably would be religious if people didn't ruin it for everybody, because I think there is something deeper and different that we don't know about. And that's what I'm more fascinated about. It's like, what happens after this? I think it's more like subconsciously, I think, or maybe consciously, maybe there's a dimension we don't know about, that's deeper, the spiritual dimension.
Excited.
You know what I mean?
I don't think you're an atheist. I think you're spiritual AF, dude, and believe in something.
I
just think language has ruined it for everybody. And I got to go because I had a 1 o'clock. But
yes. Great way to put it. Language, yeah.
We need to talk about this more.
Let's do it.
Thank you for coming on today's show. This is awesome.
Such a pleasure. Love you, Heather.
Cool.